until they vomit, or not eat at all. People like to escape from reality by putting poison in their body. People simply like to kill. But what about others? What do others like to do? Well, they just like to dig up corpses and turn them into dolls. Anatoly Moskvin was born in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia's fifth largest city, as the only child of his parents, Elvira and Yurim, on September 1st, 1966. From a young age, it was apparent that Anatoly was different. He kept to himself, had trouble socializing with other children, and was often bullied. He was also extremely intelligent, earning top grades. When he was around 8, Anatoly experienced a traumatic incident and he never told anybody about it, including his parents, until he was 50. On his way home from school, he was sexually assaulted by an adult male and came home covered in bruises. But that was a light breeze comparing what happened 4 years later. When Anatoly was 12, he had a strange experience that significantly changed the course of his life. He recalls that he was walking down the street, participating in a school recycling outing, when he was approached by a group of men. The men somehow convinced him to attend a funeral with them and steered him towards a nearby cemetery. The funeral turned out to be for 11-year-old Natasha Petrova, who had died accidentally for being electrocuted in her bath. The girl's mother urged Anatoly to kiss the corpse, which he refused. However, he later recalled the mother forced his face close to Natasha's until he had no choice but to kiss her forehead. Once, twice, 3 times. By the 3rd time, he found that he had actually enjoyed the experience. As if in a bizarre fairy tale, the mother then produced 2 brass rings, one of which she placed on Anatoly's finger and the other on Natasha's. There, she proclaimed, "Now, you are married." It is highly possible that this encounter engraved some deep feelings in Anatoly, because he said that shortly after, Natasha visited him in his dreams nightly, where she would torment him and urge him to return to the cemetery in which he was buried and perform black magic rituals. Eventually, Anatoly did visit the cemetery again and acted out the rituals as Natasha had described in his dreams. After that, the dreams stopped. Well, at least for a while. Then they returned, with Natasha now demanding that Anatoly procure a tooth from another boy and place it under his pillow. She would then collect it, tooth fairy style, and somehow attach herself to the tooth's owner. Somehow Anatoly managed to get another boy's tooth, did as he was instructed, and was finally left in peace by the spirit. Following this incident, Anatoly developed a macabre fascination or obsession with death, burial practices and cemeteries that would consume him for the rest of his life. He loved strolling through cemeteries, studying the gravestones and enjoying the serenity. In fact, he coined the term necropolist, meaning expert on cemeteries, to refer to himself. After secondary or high school, Anatoly enrolled in the Gorky Pedagogical Institute of Foreign Languages, where he earned a degree in philology. He was a polyglot, speaking 13 different languages, many of which he had taught himself. It was around this time he took an interest in black magic and the occult, joining a group of practicing Satanists. Perhaps he was influenced by the rituals he had supposedly performed at Natasha's behest. As an interesting aside, this is the age at which symptoms of schizophrenia, such as delusions and hallucinations, usually appear. His beliefs would become increasingly bizarre, prompting him to engage in some truly sinister activities. 2 years later, Anatoly was hired by an author to help write a catalog of area cemeteries. His assignment was to explore a total of 752 cemeteries, noting the information on the gravestones. Not surprisingly, he loved this job, and he was as happy as the proverbial pig in mud. He didn't take food or water with him, often drinking out of puddles. He even slept in the cemeteries, either on benches, the grass, or in one case, an empty coffin which had been left at the gravesite, and he found the accommodation cozy. Around 2009, visitors to some of these cemeteries noticed that the graves of their loved ones had been tampered with. Some appeared as though the soil has been disturbed, while others found letters or cards placed on the graves. After hours one night in 2011, police patrolling a cemetery noticed a man who appeared to be painting a gravestone. They asked for his identification and found that he was none other than necropolist extraordinaire Anatoly Moskvin. He agreed to take the police back to the apartment he shared with his parents, and what the officers found there would shock and horrify them. Before even entering the apartment, the police were assaulted by the sickening smell of human decay. Once inside, they found out that every surface of the small apartment was covered with clothes, newspapers, Anatoly's collection of 60,000 books, and, most disturbingly, numerous life-sized dolls. All female, the dolls ranged from the toddler-sized to adult-sized and were clothed in a variety of outfits: bonnets, dresses, boots, jackets, hats, and scarves. Some appeared to be wearing makeup. They were everywhere, perched on furniture, sitting on the floor, or laying randomly about. When Anatoly's parents were asked about the dolls, they replied that their son had always had an interest in lifelike dolls. "We knew it was his hobby to make big dolls," said his mother. If I may add a very questionable statement, it's mind-boggling to me how in the world they couldn't notice something or even smell it. When one officer moved the doll, he heard music and discovered that Anatoly has placed a music box inside of it. At the same time, police came to a horrifying realization that these were not dolls, but mummified human remains. Can you imagine a scene where he actually carves into the flesh of the corpse and stuffs a music box in there? Absolutely disgusting. Not needing to say, it was more than enough to put him in handcuffs.
Общением с духами умерших детей, но также и мазал мусульманские могилы на кладбищах. Мотивы в разных случаях были разные. Что вас конкретно интересует?
По поводу душ умерших детей.
По поводу душ умерших детей, дело в том, что я специалист по кельтологии и изучаю кельтскую...
At the police station, Anatoly spoke freely. He said that he'd been robbing the graves of newly deceased females since 2003, when he got the idea to adopt them as his own when his adoption application was denied. When he found an obituary that spoke to him, he would sleep on the child's grave in order to determine if the spirit wished to be brought back to life. Moskvin claimed he had been doing this for around 20 years and insisted that when he began, he never dug up a grave without the permission of the child within. As he grew older, it became physically painful for him to sleep on the graves, so he began bringing the bodies home where it would be more comfortable to sleep near them. He hoped the spirits would be more willing to speak in a safe, welcoming home, and that they be might easier to hear when they were no longer underground. He said that he would go to the cemetery under the cover of darkness, where he would dig up the freshly interred corpse and begin the preservation or mummification process. First he wrapped them in a mixture of salt and baking soda, then stuffed rags inside of them and wrapped nylon ties around their heads and legs. For their face, he took the plastic of porcelain from an actual doll face and fit it carefully over the skull. Eyes consisted of paint or buttons, because the girls had to be able to see so that they could watch cartoons with Anatoly. He made sure to record their vital statistic from the headphones so that he could celebrate their birthdays, at which they would be presented with gifts. And he also talked with his girls in their own language. There were a total of 26 in the apartment, with an additional 3 in the garage, those who had somehow fallen out of favor with their creator. Some say that Anatoly wasn't speaking with them. The oldest one, in terms of seniority, had been with him for 9 years. Not surprisingly, news of the ghoulish professor and his macabre menagerie of human dolls spread quickly. Anatoly was given the nickname the Lord of the Mummies, and he was charged with 44 separate criminal counts. In 2012, he was given a psychiatric evaluation and found to be unfit to stand trial, having been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. So, let's talk about psychology. Anatoly was diagnosed with schizophrenia, which is defined as a serious mental illness marked by being out of touch with reality. Although it cannot be cured, it can be regulated with medication. Looking at his history, we can see that Anatoly exhibited many signs of schizophrenia. It is interesting to note that nobody had been able to verify the actual existence of Natasha Petrova, let alone the events at her funeral. Was this all a delusion, a figment of Anatoly's imagination? We will probably never know. He reported that he only unearthed bodies who told him that they wanted to be rescued and live with him. He laid on the ground above a specific grave, and if he heard a voice saying that she wanted to come out, he would oblige. Auditory hallucinations or magical thinking. Again, there is no way to know. The reason he was not punished by law is that his mental disease or defect made him unable to appreciate the wrongfulness of his acts. He said that while he was aware the grave robbing was illegal, he felt that a need to rescue the girls from the graves was more important. He stated that he meant to keep them, but only until he could figure out a way to reanimate them, either through magic or science. In court, he expressed no remorse, telling the girls' families, "You put them in the ground, I brought them home and warmed them up," and he even refused to apologize, claiming, "These girls are girls. There are no parents in my view. They buried their daughters, and this is where I believe their rights over them finished. So no, I would not apologize." In the end, it is a tough call to decide whether Anatoly Moskvin is a monster or just a sad human being. However, one thing is clear, that he is sick, and the question is the sickness enough to justify his intentions?